Oh, hey, welcome back. Thanks for coming. It's the Hotline Show. It's the 26th one. Amazing. Today is September 1st, 2024. Can you believe it? We're already into September. I remember when we first started, I was cold all the time. Now we're about to get cold again. Soon. Got a couple months. Just want to give a quick update on a few things. Last week, sort of talked about eating meat, animals, loving them. Great episode. You should watch it. If not, some really thoughtful comments. And I appreciate all of that. And I think it's all good. It's all good. We're all thinking about these things. And little by little, we get better and evolve and change the way we think. Not everything is so simple. Things are complicated. In that episode, I also talked about a weather station that I have. One person clicked the link below and bought it. So that's awesome. Thank you for that 50 cents. I appreciate that. What else is there? Oh, I'm working on this egg sandwich thing. You'll see it in my newsletter later this week, but I've been making these green eggs. I don't know if you can really tell. It's been hard to photograph the color of these eggs, but look at this. Like, can you see this? I mean, these are sort of bluish here. This is the color my chickens always used to lay, but I've got these green eggs. And I've developed this egg sandwich with the guy who owns the food cart down in Berryville. It's called the Emerald Egg Sandwich, coming next Friday. I was initially going to price it at $100. Might be a more normal priced egg sandwich. We'll see. It was kind of funny that it was going to be $100 and really luxurious, incredible ingredients. But I don't know if I want to go with that gag. You'll see. I don't know yet what I've decided. Maybe it will be, maybe it won't be. Whatever it will be my green eggs for sale in an egg sandwich if you happen to live anywhere near Berryville, New York, which I'm certain 99% of you do not, if not more than 99.9999% of you do not live anywhere near me, but maybe you're passing through. Anyway, that's that. Hotline Show. We got 3 calls today. They're all good. I'm going to try to go through them fast. Let's get into it. Oh, if you don't know, you can just call the number below. Leave a question, comment, suggestion, ask anything. I have a lot of great questions in the bank, but I need more. I like having more, and sometimes it just makes me think about different things and get working on it. So call that number. I appreciate it. Let's go. First call.
Hey Noah, how are you? This is Tim McFarland from Philadelphia, painter from Philadelphia. Anyway, for some reason I was thinking about the early 2000s phenomenon of it was probably short-lived of long portraits, and I did some Googling and I found Clayton Cubitt's project of long portraits, and you were one of the subjects. So I was curious about what your experience was like when you did that. Like, I'm sure there was like a range of emotions and maybe some tedium or whatever. But if you recall, I was just wondering, like, maybe what you were thinking about, or whatever kind of feelings you were having while having that experience of like staring into a camera for 5 or so minutes. Okay. Thanks a lot. And I'll see you online. Take care.
Tim from Philly. Thank you for that call. Love your work. Love your paintings. Thanks for calling in. This is a great question about that long portrait that Clayton Cubitt did. That was in February of 2009, so 15 years ago. And it was actually in that era where digital SLR started shooting video. So a lot of photographers started experimenting with it, shooting video for the first photographers, sort of starting to dabble and get into shooting video. And Clayton was on the forefront of that in that era, especially in New York City. He was always Clayton Cubitt who made that video. Actually, I'm going to play the video real quick, just like 5-10 seconds of it so everyone knows what we're talking about. So yeah, you get the point. That goes on for 5 minutes of me just staring into the camera. Now, what was I thinking about during that during that session? Clayton had come over to my studio in Williamsburg, and we just did it. He had done a few before, so I sort of knew what to expect. But it was really just a portrait, looking into the camera and sort of being emotionless. And that was that. I don't know. It was so long ago. What was I thinking about? I was like, probably like, do I look okay, or is this cool? I was honored that Clayton asked me to do it. I was always a fan, still am a fan of his work. So to me, it was just great that he came and did that with me. I was excited to do it, but I don't really remember what I was thinking just sitting there that long. I know in that era, I was sort of into, obviously there was the everyday stuff that happened with the self portraits. So I was sort of into sort of self kind of projection thing. But yeah, I don't know. My mind, I can like sit somewhere and just stare and it's like nothing. And I've said I don't even see like color, like images in my head. Like I have the aphantasia. So I was just probably just blankly staring right into the lens and being like, okay, I'm just doing this. I'm just going to wait till he stops it. That's it. Really interesting story, funny story about that video because he made it, he put it online. It did whatever it did online back in those days, Tumblr, whatever. But I was in Denver, Colorado, late December of that year, 2009, and I got a call from Wyden and Kennedy, and they called me and they were like, "Do you still have a beard?" I was like, "Yeah." They were like, "Can you send us a photo of it? We're casting a commercial right now, and we were thinking about putting you in the commercial. We just need to make sure you still have a beard." I was like, "Okay." So I texted or emailed them a photo, and they were like, "Great. Can you be in LA tomorrow?" I was in Denver, and I was like, "Oh yeah. I mean, I'm here. I just finished the shoot I was doing. I'll fly to LA." They're like, all expense paid. They want to put me in this commercial. I didn't really ask what it was for or anything about it, really. Just I was like, cool. Just that's kind of how things work with me. Just one thing leads to another, leads to another. So, I end up in LA, fancy hotel, West Hollywood. I had to be at a fitting the day before the shoot, back lot, Universal Studios, like the real deal. Like I was getting the impression something big was going on, and I remember being back in the sort of backstage, like fitting areas. They were doing a fitting for wardrobe, and it was all like male models and like actors, like men with chins. And I felt very much out of place. Finally, like the the art directors of Wyden and Kennedy were like, "Oh Noah, come hang out with us." Like they sort of brought me, like saved me from having to be around like these like weird Hollywood actor people. And they were like, "You look just like the director." And at the time I was like, didn't even bother to ask who the director was because I just assumed it was a commercial and I wouldn't have known who the director was. It was just going to be some name. So I was like, I was like, oh, that's interesting. They like sort of read the script to me. They were like, all you have to do, this, just to tie it back to Clayton Cubitt's long portrait. They're like, this commercial, all you're going to have to do is just look right into the camera. It's just different shots of men looking into the camera. And I was like, okay, you know, and I think they said it was a car commercial. So I was like, cool. Next day I show up on set. They had taken over a whole area of Hollywood, somewhere in LA. I don't know. It was like outside of LA, maybe trailers, just to shoot in one house. We shot in one house, but like literally the whole neighborhood was shut down. People everywhere. It's like easily, I sort of knew, I was working as a photographer. I sort of knew there was a production happening here. Like obviously, like, and not just like any old production, like there was like $1 million written all over this thing. So it's like, what's going on, And then, Oh, well, and just maybe back up just a bit, but the night before I get the call sheet, and it lists everyone who's on the shoot, and I look at who the director is, and it's Mark Romanek. So if you don't know, Mark Romanek's a pretty famous film director. He did the movie 1 Hour Photo, and he did all of the sort of, not all, but like so many influential music videos in the late 90s, early 2000s. He was just like one of the hottest music video directors like of the era. You let me violate you. Of course, I knew who this was. I've known his work. So I was like, holy shit, like, what is this? You know, like, this isn't any old commercial. Like, this is something's happening. But I still don't really know. Like I said, I got to set and it was like money, you know, and then I get called to set. I sit down and, you know, it's shooting on film. It's like, I don't even see Mark. He's in the room back there. It's assistant director, DPs, everywhere. Like 3 people on the camera, huge camera, you know, and they just like, I'm just looking in it and they're just like, just as you are, you know, like just look into the camera. And like Clayton's video, you know, maybe, possibly, probably inspired by it. And it was just, you know, do that. So we did, I think it was like 1 minute and they rolled the film, just looked into the camera. And then finally Mark comes out, Mark Romanek. And he's like, Noah, you have such a great face. It's like, oh, thank you. It's like, you're going to get a lot of calls. This is a Super Bowl commercial. It's like, what the fuck? I mean, first I had heard of it, was sitting there right there. I was like, whoa, it's a big deal. If you're outside the US, you might know. It's like the most watched television event of the year. So I was like, holy shit, you know, and we do a couple more takes. He's like, he gave me some direction, but like ultimately he didn't really have to say much, obviously. And we ran a whole spool of film. You know, it was like 4 or 5 takes. And that was it. I was wrapped. And, you know, he let me, he was like, oh, I know your work. Like, I loved your everyday project. Like, stick around set if you want to hang around. Just, you know, and I sort of did. And I became friends with first guy who's in this commercial, David Giantoli. We're still friends to this day. He's an actor. You probably maybe seen him in a bunch of different shows. He was the lead on that show Grimm on NBC for a long time. Just great guy. I love that guy. I've stayed with him in LA. So that was just fascinating experience. Also, I was like, when I met David in that time, I was like, why do I know you? He was on Road Rules that I had watched. You know, we're roughly the same age, like 10 years earlier. I'd seen him on MTV, Road Rules. So that was that. I remember talking to the art director who, you know, they actually, I was wearing the same shirt I think I was wearing in Clayton's video. Maybe not. Maybe they found something that was similar, but I think they ultimately just went with one of the shirts that I wore. Wardrobe, nothing was right. They had seen that video that Clayton made and were using it as reference for this commercial. And they were casting for a man with a beard who looked like me. And they couldn't find it. That's why they ended up calling me last minute to just be like, get him. It was a Union SAG commercial, so they had to pay a fine on me. I don't really know exactly how that works, but, you know, they were just like, we want that guy. So I ended up in this Super Bowl commercial. I'll play it for you right now.
I will get up and walk the dog at 6:30 a.m. I will eat some fruit as part of my breakfast. I will shave. I will clean the sink after I shave. I will be at work by 8 a.m. I will sit through 2-hour meetings. I will say yes when you want me to say yes. I will be quiet when you don't want to hear me say no. I will take your call. I will listen to your opinion of my friends. I will listen to your friends' opinions of my friends. I will be civil to your mother. I will put the seat down.
I will separate the recycling. I will carry your lip balm. I will watch your vampire TV shows with you.
I will take my socks off before getting into bed. I will put my underwear in the basket. And because I do this, I will drive the car I want to drive. Charger, man's last stand.
That was quite the experience. And sure enough, it aired on the Super Bowl. I didn't really tell anyone. It was sort of a secret. So all of a sudden, it comes on that year, that 2010 Super Bowl. It plays. I think it was third quarter. People see me. And I did get phone calls, but just from people who I knew, who recognized me and were like, wow, that was crazy. I thought in my head at the moment that maybe that meant I would get calls to like be an actor or something. But of course, that never happened. Now, because it was a SAG commercial, I did get royalties on it. But the funny thing is that that commercial was 1 minute long. They cut that as a nationwide spot to play all around the US for a couple months, but they cut me out of the 30-second spot. So basically when all was said and done, maybe I made like $2,000 on it. Remember, I think talking to David about it, and he made so much money. At least that's what he said. Or I don't know, maybe it wasn't a lot. I mean, he was in a lot of stuff, so it's all relative to real actors, I guess. But like, he was like, oh man, that sucks because, yeah, that check was good. And I was like, of course, they cut me out. Played in movie theaters, so I got a little from that. But yeah, I mean, that was that story, all leading from just doing that project with Clayton. One thing leads to another. So I guess maybe it's a lesson when a friend asks you to be in their art project, know that some art director is almost certainly ripping off an artist somewhere that they saw like on YouTube or just on the internet and are using it to pitch major brands, and they're going to make all the money. So anyway, Tim, thank you for that call. I appreciate it. Thanks again. Call back anytime. Let's go to the next caller.
Hey Noah, James here. So my question for your hotline show is, do you ever feel like you just start to become the suggestions that people give to you? I recall you once said in an earlier video that you didn't want people to give you suggestions, and I totally get that. When I used to do photography and other creative projects, I found that critiques, suggestions that people would give me would stick to me. It'd unconsciously impact my future work. For example, if someone said my photo was too dark, I'd end up just thinking about that the next time I took a shot, which, kind of made the shot a little worse, to be honest. So I was just wondering, how do you avoid that influence creeping into your work unconsciously? Yeah, thanks. Bye.
James, thank you for that call. Thanks for calling back. Good to hear from you again. Great question. How do you avoid influence from creeping into your work? And do you become the suggestions that people give you? And well, this is complicated. I mean, I think suggestions, and I think I remember saying that I don't want feedback or suggestions. Maybe, it's true, not true. I mean, it's weird when artists get to a level, where they're comfortable in what they're making. They get an ego about what they do, and they think everything that they do is good. So when someone else suggests something to them, they're hesitant and they're possibly dismissive of it because they don't know what you're doing. So it can be awkward when, artists like get feedback and, maybe it goes against the things that they were working on, or maybe it's a good idea and they don't want to admit to it. They're just sort of stubborn. And this is how I am. And I think people are generally fearful of, or like trepidatious about giving me feedback on certain things because, well, one, they might feel like that I don't need it, but in other ways, like I can be really defensive and get angry when people offer me feedback that I know is right or true, but I don't want to admit it. So I get stubborn and then I just sort of become an asshole about it. So I guess that's the thing. And then, yeah, those suggestions, they get in your head. And I don't think it's subconscious. I think it's conscious. I mean, certainly, I'm no, like, it's not unusual for me to get like lots of positive feedback. I've gone a long time where people generally like the things that I make. I mean, oftentimes if they don't say anything. But like I get a lot of very good and positive feedback. So when you do get the negative thing, and anyone who posts online knows this, you get positive stuff and it feels good. You get that one negative comment and it just eats you alive. You're just like, what the fuck? It just gets into you. And certain people on the internet know how to do it. They know how to get to you. And there's trollish stuff where they'll just get in your head. And that's all, there's probably comments that people have left that have stuck with me forever. In fact, there's one I remember about my everyday video where someone once said, this video would be better if he was a more interesting person. And I'll never forget it because it's true, I think. Maybe not, but it kind of is. It hit the right thing, because oftentimes I don't think I am very interesting, and I'm not. I mean, I'm whatever. It's all relative, and maybe I've done a few things now that make me mildly interesting to some people, but that one just always sticks with me. And they just. I think these things are good, though. I think it's good to hear all opinions, not shut them out, and take that feedback. I think critique in art school is very useful if it's constructive and if it is like made with love, or at least respect, like people trying to help you consider things. Obviously, I've said this before, you trust your own instincts. Like, better than anyone what you're trying to do. And usually what you think is right is going to be the right thing for you in that moment. But, sometimes there's feedback that's good and useful and you can use it. So you're supposed to use it. And then you put it into your work. And all of these things come together and form who you are and what you do. So I don't think you should actively try to avoid them or ignore them, but, just cultivate them and use them if you want, or don't if you don't like them. But that's my perspective on that. I think it's good. And I think, it's a great question. It's a great question, James. Thank you again. Always good. We're going to do one more call, but I'm getting a little hot in here and the sun is starting to go down. So let me take the last call outside, maybe by the fire pit or something. So meet me out there. I have a bunch of tax documents that I'm just going to burn. So I'm going to do that outside. See you out there in a minute. Well, they won't ever find it. I'm burning it. Hey, all right, let's finish it up. Take the last call. Brian.
Hey Noah, it's Brian in Minneapolis. Caught the episode last week of the Hotline show where your dad called in and was talking about, discussing politics, and seems like you kind of, maybe didn't want to go too in depth of it, but I'm just wondering from an artist and creative perspective, there's a lot of issues around not being able to make a living as an artist because of the cost of living, housing, transportation, healthcare. So maybe there's an opportunity to discuss those things and how they kind of tie into, the current political environment and, what the two different parties believe in terms of, funding the arts, which is another big one in the United States. So I don't know if I really have a specific question on what you think about those, but it does seem, based on comments that you see on social media, that there's a lot of, anxiety about those, topics that come up. So maybe that's an angle to, kind of discuss some of the political elements that tie it right back into, what artists and other creators would be concerned about. Curious what you have to say. Thanks.
Brian, thanks for that call. Glad you're still listening. Appreciate you reaching out again. Yeah, politics and the arts and how it affects artists. Yeah, that's good. I need pointed questions, I think, would be maybe a little more helpful just in terms of focusing a conversation around politics and art, funding of the arts. Of course, the United States does an awful job funding the arts. We've cut it, mostly because of Republicans. I hate that there's so much focus now on STEM. I mean, it's good. We should be focused on everything. Science, technology, I don't know, what's the other two? Engineering, what's the M? Mathematics. So everyone's gotten all like technical about everything, and we're not really doing the liberal arts education as much, or focusing on that as much, or just sort of putting it aside. You do a little arts education, that's all you need. And as a result, we end up with people who run these tech companies who are just these fucking like libertarian, dorky fucking money tech people, no soul. They have no soul. Jack Dorsey was an exception, though. I think he actually did. I mean, things change, obviously, but yeah, I mean, politics. It's all politics. Everything we do is politics, right? Like every aspect of our lives. Yes, housing. How do people afford it? I mean, something. It's always been hard for artists to afford anything, right? This is nothing new. I mean, when I was getting into it, everyone was, all of the older folks, my parents, friends, older people, are all like, they're scared. How do you make a living doing that? It's hard. It's never been easy. It's like one of the hardest things you can possibly do and try to make a living with. I still, to this day, I struggle. Like I've had some moments, some windfalls here and there, but one of those, and then, then I don't work for fucking 6 months, 8 months, a year. It's hard, stressful, and like, job. It's work, jobs. I don't know. We've talked about this before. You make a choice. Sometimes you take that easy route, sometimes you take the hard route. This isn't really about politics, but I guess like the thing is like, how much support should the government play? These are all issues. Everything's an issue. Rent, school funding, college, student loans, repayment. I paid back my student loans, but I'm fully in favor of forgiving student loans. It's onerous loans by shitty fucking companies who are just taking advantage of people. And like, just because I paid it back, like, I should be mad that other people don't have to? Fuck that. Anyone who thinks that is an asshole. Seriously. Is that politics? Yeah, I guess, right? I mean, the Democrats would do that. Republicans would never do that. So, there's a lot. I think it does need to be more focused for me to get into it. I mean, what do I know? I don't know shit. I mean, I maybe have some takes, but I don't, off the top of my head, it's kind of hard. And look, it's getting dark out. Those weren't tax documents. Taxes, that's politics. The laws, man, laws. It's all, everything we do. I know there are some people who really want to sort of hang out on the internet and want to have their content be a politics-free zone. And I kind of get that. I mean, that's not how I've ever used the internet. I like to mix it up. Get a little art, get culture, movies, music, politics. It's how you become like a well-rounded person. And all art has something to do with politics, one way or another. If sometimes it might not be as overt. I mean, and then the people who just like doing landscapes or whatever, their photography is just like enjoying nature. That's fucking politics. Like national parks in the United States, like preserving things, conservation, making sure these things are around. So, but anyway, the point was like some people do get sort of upset when politics comes up and they want to turn it off. And, you know, I don't really think people should do that. I think you should expose yourself to it and, you know, hear all points of view. I know that might be unpopular. There are some real shithole points of views these days. Didn't really see it as much early internet days, but it was still out there. Come on. You know, they were just being. Anyway, Brian, thank you. Call back, you know, hit me with something direct, and I think that'll help. And we'll do more of politics pontificating. Thanks everyone for coming. Do the stuff, like, subscribe. Call the numbers in the description below. I appreciate it. Have a good day, night, week, month, year. It's getting there. We got a fire going. It's chill, cooling down at night. Pretty soon it's going to be snow. Fall foliage. The fall foliage perverts are going to start to come up to leaf peep. See you later.